As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. Hey everybody, I'm your host Ted Lowe, and each week on the All Pro Dad Podcast, we ask just one question. We explore the answer, we talk about what we've gotten wrong, and occasionally what we've gotten right. We talk about what the experts say, and then at the end of the episode, we give you just one simple but powerful pro move of the week. Hey, today I am with my co-host, Mr. Bobby Lewis.
Hey, man.
And Bobby, we have a very special guest today.
Yeah, it's a little different. Normally when we do the All Pro Dad podcast, we're hanging out here at the office. We're going over all the research and stuff that we've done for specific topics. But today we have a guest, and I'm really excited about this guy because for a week or so, we knew we were going to have him on the show. I've been thinking about how neat this is going to be to learn from him. It's Dan Orlovsky, NFL veteran quarterback, spent many years in the league, also a dad of 4, and he coaches a lot of his kids' teams. I mean, we're going to learn a lot about sports and fatherhood and how those intertwine from Dan today.
Yep. And he is also an ESPN analyst. And so I know he's very excited to be on the podcast and maybe help his career. So we were glad to bring that.
Yeah, he's been struggling. He needed us. Yeah.
Yeah, to bring that to the table. No, we're super excited about this interview. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Dan, welcome to the All Pro Dad Podcast.
Great to be with you guys. Awesome.
We're excited you're here. Hey, each week we take a look at a question. And our question this week is, how should dads behave in the bleachers? How should dads, and before we get into that, tell us a little bit about your family, your kids, and their involvement with sports and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Can we blast this out to everybody, every human being on the planet? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I'm super blessed. My family's amazing. We have my wife and I. So my wife and I are actually married for 15 years this coming July 5th.
Awesome.
Which is...
July 5th? Dude, I'm 15 years July 4 this year.
No way.
That's amazing.
July
Look
5th.
at you.
Yeah, we did it July 5th just because, trying to find time in the off season of football when I was still playing, this was the most likely option.
That's cool.
So 15 years with my wife, and it's been better than I could have ever imagined. And we have 4 kids. We have triplet, 12-year-old boys that are 12 and 13 in late December. And then we have an 8-year-old daughter who turns 9 in October. And so, it's funny to have to answer this question right now because we're in late May and we're in the heart of spring season for us. And 3 out of our 4 kids are pretty deep into sports. And so 2 of our boys play baseball and lacrosse, and then our daughter plays lacrosse and soccer. And so the reason why I say it's funny to talk about it is, I think I'll go back when I was a kid, sports were a big deal to me. I was pretty good at them. But one of the things that I remember about sports was it became like the only thing, at least it felt this way, that mattered in our house. It was the only thing. I played good, everyone was happy. I played bad, everyone was miserable. And I felt the wrath of that. Yeah. And sports became like the God. It became like the biggest and most important thing on a daily basis. And so while I appreciate some elements of that, it's something that I'm very conscious of in our own home. I think the second thing is, we started our kids in sports. I love sports. I'm a jock. Sports is like the only thing that I feel I can really talk about with conviction. We started our kids late in sports intentionally. I'm really big, with my wife I didn't want my kids were going to feel pressure anyway because of what their dad did and then what I do for my job now. And so I was like, I don't want them to feel this pressure that they have to go be who I was or be better than me or whatnot. And so we started them later in sports. And what that meant was when they started playing sports, they didn't really start playing sports till let's say 9 or 10 years old. They weren't as good as the other kids. Yeah. And that was really hard for me, especially my boys. It was hard. And I remember going to my wife so many times and being like, how? Because I was a really good athlete. My wife was a really good athlete. And it was difficult. I don't want to lie and pretend that it wasn't. And, I throughout that time, I leaned heavily on my wife, and in conversation, I leaned heavily on God, and just was, there was a couple moments pivotal for me to being like, don't make that same mistake that you grew up in. Don't, and it was a fight. It still is, it's a fight. for myself in regards to that. And so, something about the behavior of parents and the behavior of a dad specifically, I feel has been a really big growth process for me over the last 18 months or so. It's my boys are now starting to like thrive in sports, and that makes me feel great. They put a lot of effort into it. They put a lot of time into it. My daughter is a very naturally talented and gifted athlete, and she loves it. And, like I've had the mistake, I've made the mistake of during a game or after a game, giving the hands up or like, focus or,
right.
Like that stupid stuff or after a game, being like, you didn't play as hard as you could type of thing. Or,
right.
And I remember a couple months ago, I asked my kids, I said, what do you need for me to do? And
that's a great question.
My two boys said, get out of our way.
Yeah.
Because I had one son who constantly would look at me in games, whether I said something or not, because all he wants to do is make me proud. And they were like, get out of our way, like love us and support us. And when we're at the age where like, when we want your advice on it, we'll come ask you. And I'm going for a while here, but one of the things that has been really good for me this year is I'm coaching my kids, and I made the pact with another coach on the team. I don't coach my kids ever in the games or practices, and you don't coach yours ever in the games or the practices. I'll coach your kid, you coach mine. And that's been great for me in that regard.
Yeah,
that's great.
I mean, you obviously made it to the very highest level of your specific sport. You played quarterback in the NFL, one of the hardest jobs to get. And so naturally you're a born competitor, right? That just has to be part of your makeup if you're going to be that guy. Do you find yourself being just as competitive watching your kids? Like you want them to succeed, you want them to thrive?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why, it's a struggle. It's part of the reason why, because again, this is so funny to be having this conversation because my son's lacrosse team, we live in an area where lacrosse is a really big deal. It's the best athletes play lacrosse, and the town we live in is a highly successful lacrosse town, and their grade is struggling this year. And I'm a coach, and I've caught myself on the sidelines uttering the phrase, I can't want to win more than you guys. They're 12. Like they want to win,
right.
So I've had to, be like, Dan, what are you doing? And so, and I joke about it. Like one of the great things, my daughter had her soccer game last night and we got an email from the town, and this was silent sidelines where you couldn't make a noise. The whole sideline has to be silent the whole game. No cheering, no nothing. You just sit there and watching. And it was so nice. It was so nice. And I was joking with the parents sometimes, because the parents, we've all spent enough time together, and there's a couple girls that, you sit there and you watch them like they're so good. And then you talk to their parents and they all like, we have to catch ourselves with being too competitive. We have to catch ourselves with constantly yelling. And so, I have to, it's a balance. Cause I even say to my wife, I say to my kids, like, this is who I am. Like I'm a highly competitive, highly emotional, highly intense person. But what I've learned is if my competitiveness and my emotions are negatively impacting them, then I have to adjust. I'm the 40-year-old. They're 12. I'm the adult. And so, that's a big thing for me is I can be highly competitive and I could be highly emotional and highly intense, but that's not going to make them highly emotional and highly competitive and highly intense. I can't push a rope, like I'm going to run out. And so that's been a really big growth process for me.
There's a study out that said that only 1.6% of kids playing sports are going to end up being professional athletes, but 40% of dads think it's their kid.
Man.
So I can't imagine you were the 1.6% and feeling that pressure. Why do you think dads get so so upset and so passionate about it in the stands and respond in the ways that they do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I think the great majority of dads, one of two reasons. One, they think that their success as a father is dependent on specifically the son's success as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You're either a good dad or a bad dad if the kid is good at sports. And I think and then that's attached to like what parent group you're in, what social group that you're a part of, and what people think of you. And I think the second thing is, this may not be the most liked answer in the world, but there's probably a lot of, I wish I would have, a lot of regret.
Sure.
And, it is the live vicariously through type of thing. And so I think those are the two, big reasons why. I do think there's a group of dads that are super well-intentioned and they understand the massive benefits and pros of all the lessons that are learned in sports. We had a good friend of ours text the other day. We have sons that are the same age, and the mom texted us, honest question, do you let them fail or do you keep pushing them? And I responded back with both. You let both happen. And I told her, most kids have no idea the importance of sports. Most kids have no concept of why hard work matters, nor should they. It's our job to make sure that we demand that those characteristics of you will always give your best effort, and you will always be a great teammate, and you will always do the very best that you can. And that's the expectation. And when we do things, and why, while also realizing that they're not going to always, and realizing that even though they do, they will lose and they will play bad and they will fail. And those are great moments for them to get better at. And I think the more that you're aware of that, I also I'm at a huge benefit. I know how hard it was to make it. I know all the things that I had to have to go in my favor to make it. And I think that once you are very aware of that, and what it looks like and what it sounds like, I think it's easier to navigate that journey.
Have you noticed that your kids have matured because of sports, or that they've become more high character people because of sports?
No question about it. No question about it. And I'm watching each of them individually in things that they benefit from the sports. I have one son right now who is I was just talking to my wife about it last night. He's taking off in sports when it comes to his performance. Mm-hmm. But this last year or so is the first time that he was like, hey, Dad, can I do baseball lessons? Sure, bud. Mm-hmm. And then the coach tells him, hey, every day I want you to practice your swing 50 times in a mirror. I don't have to tell him to do that anymore. Mm-hmm. Coach tells him jump rope for 5 minutes a day. I don't have to do that. So I've watched him fall in love with the work element of it. And now he's reaping the benefits of it. And a year ago, it was the biggest struggle in the world to get him to be confident in himself and not talk negatively about himself. Now he is walking with this aura about himself, and he's realizing I love hard work. Yeah. I have another son right now who's going through the season of humbling. And he needs it. He needs it. He needs to get, and in the, I can't just show up type of thing. But I've watched him understand that a little bit. And I've watched him, over the past couple of weeks be just because my dad has I have my dad's last name doesn't mean I'm just going to be the best player on the team anymore. And then for my daughter, she's still 8. So it's hard to really gauge stuff, but my daughter is blessed, man. My daughter is blessed with super talent. She's unbelievably confident, wildly competitive. So it's hard to gauge, has she benefited off of it? But certainly for 2 of my 3 boys, for sure. One of my boys doesn't play sports. But for the 2 that are kind of in it deep, absolutely.
Talk a little bit about that when you're an athlete and you have a son that doesn't want to play sports. How do you guys talk about that? How do you handle that at home?
Yeah, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I think it's one of the best things that could have ever happened to our family. This is just for transparency. It's not for anyone to like feel bad. So one of our sons is autistic. So that's why he doesn't play sports. Now he's relatively high functioning, all that stuff. He used to play baseball. Then we pulled him out of team sports because it just wasn't beneficial for him, his teammates, his buddies, his friends, coaches, all that. But it kind of goes back to the point of like, I'm a jock. So like sports are very easy for me. I love sports. I could watch him and talk to him all day. And so he's not that interested in that all the time. He is way more interested in creativity and art and video games and imagination. And that's made me so much better because there is a part of me, since sports was such an integral part of my life, that I sometimes still fall into the trap of like what I started the pod with was like sports. And sometimes, reminding me of like, no, they're into all these other different things. And that's such a good thing for them. And he's taught me so much about patience, so much about smiling, so much about like happiness and just loving and caring, indifferent of the result of something, whether it's a game or a test or,
because you're smiling now, which by the way, is the first time you smiled in this interview. So I appreciate your son right now. I teach. No, that's amazing. So he's teaching you a lot as well.
That's great.
Yeah. And he's made me he's no question made me a better dad for him for sure. And also for the others that are, the sports kids.
Yeah. My son, he just turned 9. He plays hockey. And I love the guy who runs the league because he sat us down right before the league started and said, listen, we're not going to try to get them to the NHL. We're going to be excited if they're going to get there, but that's not the goal here. Like if they get to the NHL, wonderful, but we want them to have fun. So every time they come off the ice, the first question the guy asks was, hey, did you have fun? And all the kids are like, it was so fun. And if the kid's like, not really, he goes, how can we have more fun next time? Like the fun is what matters. Is there something you tell your kids when they come off the field that you really want to drive home after games?
Yeah. Again, this is a journey, of trying to do this the right and most impactful way for them. Yeah, I will never forget. So this is 2 summers ago. I have a friend in town whose name is Bobby Christoph. Bobby's a highly successful guy and his sons are really good athletes. And they were playing a lacrosse game against a town near us and they lost. His son lost and his son walked off the field through the gate up to Bobby. Again, alpha male, highly competitive. And he put his right arm around his son and gave him a kiss on his head. And I was like, I don't know if I've seen that one, And so I tell him all the time, I try to keep that in mind. I'm by no means perfect of it. And so after games it's become like, okay, so my sons played a game on Saturday and their team lost and they get in the car and immediately want to ask, Dad, like, how do we do? And I have gone to I don't care how you did. I care how you did it.
Yeah.
I love watching you compete. I thought you competed your absolute very best. And I'll always take that. I'm so focused on that because I remember the car rides home that weren't joys. And so I'm so focused right now. Before every game, I'll take a little index card and I'll write them a note of like the big thing, the big thing in the last month, Colossians 3:23.
Oh yeah.
Because they're at that age where, okay, why are you playing? And so why are you playing as hard as you do? And so every game, I'll write a little index card. I'll put Colossians 3:23 and I'll write it in a way that they understand it, Love maybe it. Not in the exact biblical way, but everything you do it to glorify God, not for your coach or not for. And then I'll write 1 or 2 things that they could try to focus on the game, not results oriented. Like today they have a game and I wrote number 1, what's your purpose of today's game?
Love it. And
then number 2, play fearless and free. Awesome. And so I'll try to, after the game, focus on that thing of hey, I thought you hopefully tonight after the game, they get in the car and I'm saying, hey, I loved watching you guys compete tonight and whatnot. And then they're at an age where they want to know hey, and I'll be like, I thought you were super purposeful with the way you moved the ball or, hey man, dude, I thought you played free of mistakes. I love that.
That's
and
great.
So, I'm really trying to hammer that home with them. To be honest with you guys, I have learned the anger, the frustration, it doesn't do anything good ever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Like we think it does, it won't. And so this approach has been so much more beneficial.
I love it.
Dan, thank you so much. We want to honor your time here today, but this is so powerful. So powerful.
And dads need to hear it for sure. You know?
Yeah, I need to hear it.
Yeah.
It's like All Pro Dad, honestly, like every day I need it. You know, I need to hear it. It's because sports are naturally inherently competitive and no one likes to do bad, and no one likes when anyone that is attached to us does poorly, and we feel the way to fix that is this, and it's just not. It's not, you know, like they have coaches that can handle that. And I think that nowadays kids more than ever, man, like more than ever, kids need a role model, not a critic when it comes to our dad. And kids just need their dad just be like, yo, dude, it's okay, man. Like whether you did good or you did bad, dude, like we're good, bud. It's going to be okay.
Home run advice, man.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. This was so powerful, man. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bobby, that was really good.
That was good. I was expecting it to be a really good conversation, but he had some zingers, didn't he?
He did. There was one we wrote down that I just thought was crazy. He says, after he talks to his kids, you know, after the game.
Comes off the field,
and he says, I don't care how you did, but how you did it.
Yeah.
I thought, come on.
He was obviously very proud of all of his kids. And I'm glad that he talked about his son who doesn't play sports, because I'm sure we have a lot of dads who listen who are like, I love sports. Some of my kids like sports. Some don't. I have a daughter the same way. Doesn't like sports at all. I really do. So it was really cool to hear him get excited about the child that also doesn't love sports, because he relates to that child in a totally different way.
I mean, he really did. And I teased him on the interview, but he really did light up when he started talking about his son and how he says, our whole family has learned from this. And so just that he had that, not only flexibility, but actually it seemed like it was bringing out the best side of him. I tell you what I did love about him so much was that you could see the tension on his face about how difficult it is for him not to do like, come on, you guys.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents feel that. In fact, just this past weekend, my wife and I were watching our son play hockey, and she's super competitive. And she was like, man, why doesn't he get up there and do this? I'm like, he probably doesn't even know. He's just out there skating. He's having fun. And after the game, you know, the game's over and he's moving on. He's having fun. And I think that we as parents, a lot of the times, like Dan was saying, we get so wrapped up in the performance of our kids because it kind of reflects on us. Are we a good dad? He said, are we a bad dad? It's all tied into their performance. We shouldn't think that way as parents. And I'm really glad he harped on that. Just let them be kids. Let them have fun, whatever they're doing, you know, soccer, football, lacrosse, like his kids, ballet, gymnastics, doesn't matter. Let them have fun. Let them be kids.
And it seems like he's really, you know, wrestled with, why do kids need to play sports to begin with? I mean, I really like that he's talking about, you know, it's building character. And said, you know, one of his sons is the humbling. The other one's, you know, is feeling more pride about himself. And so I thought, just it was so evident he wanted them to play sports just to build character and all the things it's done for him. I just thought it was powerful.
Yeah, he's had really good insight in this particular podcast. But if you haven't signed up for the Play of the Day email that we send out every single day, we'll put that in the show notes down below. He writes for All Pro Dad as well. And a lot of his stories come from his days in the NFL and the teammates that he's had and all the experiences that he's gained from winning and losing and playing at the high level. But they're not just sports stories. They're stories that translate into life and parenting and how you guide your kids through failure and all these different things. I was really grateful we got a chance to chat with him, and hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Well, we always give a pro move of the week.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of all the, you know, truth bombs that he dropped. So what should be our pro move of the week?
I think it's this quote that you shared. I don't care how you did. I care how you did it. When he said that, I wrote it down. Like I was paying attention to all the stuff he was saying, but I was like, I got to write that one down. I got to remember it. So I think that keeping our kids' sports in perspective, and knowing that this is something they do, it doesn't define who they are. I think that's probably something that we should all work on a little bit this week as dads.
And I think this applies to any area of kid, whether that's grades.
Yep.
You know, I don't care how
art,
you did it.
Music, any of those things. Yeah.
You know, I just think this was so powerful. It's excited to have him. Hopefully we'll get to have him back.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. All right, you guys, we want to thank you for listening. We know that you and your kids will be glad you did. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis.